Oh, good evening.
Wait, it didn't start yet?
Yes, it just started. You ruined my intro. Oh, wait, I gotta fade.
Sorry.
What was that demonic laugh that just came out of your mouth?
Nothing, don't worry about it.
God, we tried to be serious for 2 seconds.
You told me you were gonna play the piano, and I was like, okay.
Well, you weren't.
She'll tell me when it's happening.
You couldn't tell from me speak. Okay, anyway. Good evening, everyone. Today, we're going to be reading a story, a special story. I was inspired by Honey Lightning's reading stream, and I wanted to read one myself. So we're going to have a nice, relaxing, soothing...
I can't promise anything.
It'll be great.
You shouldn't have invited me.
Nonsense.
It's already been so hectic and it's been split seconds.
Nonsense.
You're like less than 5 minutes of me
You're
shrieking.
perfect and beautiful.
Hey.
So tonight, we are reading Carmilla
Dun, dun, dun.
by Joseph Sheridan LaFanu.
Thank God you didn't have me read. Oh my God.
It's okay, we got it. So, this story came out before Dracula by Bram Stoker. It predates it. It is also about vampires. And yeah, like Dracula, it's also in the public domain, so we won't get sued. I also got some royalty-free piano music playing, so we're good.
Yay. We love not being sued.
We love royalty-free.
We love royalty-free music.
All right. So there's Carmilla. We got some other stuff. We got some fancy schmancy looking text. Just keep scrolling. For Thomas and Matthew. I have no idea who Thomas and Matthew are.
Good job, Thomas and Matthew.
Great job, Thomas and Matthew.
You got a lesbian novel written about you.
Do we want to read the introduction or do we want to dive right in? You know what? I'll just read the introduction. Introduction. Meet Carmilla, Kathleen Costello Sullivan. First serialized in the journal The Dark Blue and published shortly thereafter in the short story collection In a Glass Darkly, Joseph Sheridan LaFanu's 1872 vampire tale is in many ways the overlooked older sister of Bram Stoker's later and more acclaimed work, Dracula. Despite its acknowledged influence on the later text and its recognition as the first really successful vampire story, Carmilla is sometimes discounted as a minor work. And this is because LaFanu himself is often dismissed as a comparatively minor writer or pigeonholed as a representative of the sensational Gothic subgenres.
Did you know today's National Women's Day and we're reading The Lesbian Vampire?
All according to plan.
Thank God.
No, I didn't plan that, but that's great.
Oh my God.
Or because Stoker's later text purportedly better exemplifies what one typically seeks in a vampire tale. Yet Carmilla has nonetheless remained on the critical radar, repeatedly drawing attention and analysis. Of course, the story's very nature as a vampire tale alone generates interest, accounting for its frequent inclusion as an early example of the form in British fiction. But Carmilla has proven to be far more to offer than merely its vampiric credentials. The story's potential as a political and/or cultural metaphor, and its psychological resonances, its representations of gender and sexuality, and its unusual aesthetic and narrative characteristics. To name only a few areas of interest, repeatedly invite literary criticism, forcing scholars to return to this short, complex work again and again. The introduction traces the major movements of that critical history. It is, of course, as a vampire tale that Carmilla originally provoked such pointed interest beyond its significance purely as a sensational or entertaining figure in literature. The vampire fed a variety of metaphorical hungers in the wider Victorian literary imagination. According to Robert F. Geary, the increasing popularity of vampires and of other supernatural creatures and events from the mid-19th century on can be read as signaling Victorian uncertainty in the face of a more scientific, less religious, and therefore less mysterious world.
More gay.
Yeah.
What time period did this take place in?
I don't actually know.
Let's find out.
We might get a date at the beginning of the story, but I'm still on the intro.
Okay. I found out.
All right, well, let me finish the intro and then you can let us know. Actually, fine, you can just say it.
It's the late 1800s.
Okay, so not only was it written slightly before Dracula, but it also takes place slightly before, because I think Dracula literally takes place in 1900.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, quite. Indeed.
Indubitably?
Indubitably. All right.
God.
The specter of a chilling purposefulness, materialism confronted many whose view of humanity and the world no longer was dictated by Christian doctrines. In this climate, ghostly supernatural entities were for many no longer embarrassing reminders of dangerous superstitions. Instead, the specters and weird events, now thoroughly detached from a Christian context, served as a refuge, if only a clandestine one, from the dominant materialistic scientism. Geary, 1999. Yes.
Geary?
No, Geary.
Wait, where is it?
It's right there. It's the guy's name. They're quoting
Geary?
him. They're quoting him.
Geary.
Oh my God. Vampires' supernatural characteristics offered an oasis of mystery in a sea of increasing enlightenment, and yet, uncannily, also a corresponding sense of disillusionment. In this respect, the traditional combination of a vampire's simultaneous magnetism and repulsiveness arguably parallels the mixed feelings experienced by its Victorian contemporaries, who, even while reveling in their accomplishments and scientific breakthroughs, mourned the perceived loss of mystery and wonder that science and materialism were thought to bring. The aggressive foregrounding in Carmilla of the sciences, represented, for example, through Laura's father and references to contemporary figures such as natural scientist Georges Louis Leclerc, Comte de Buffoon. That's mean. That's not how his name is pronounced.
It sounds like it.
Oh my God.
I'm so mean. Guys, don't listen. I'm a bad influence.
Alongside the supernatural certainly suggests an engagement with such tensions in the novel. A similarly characteristic usage of the vampire by Victorians often investigated in Carmilla, and its engagement with the contemporary new discoveries in psychology and the social sciences. Hung Jong Lee has argued that Carmilla expresses an increasing fear toward the end of the 19th century that classifications differentiating men from women, civilized Europeans from primitive natives, moral individuals from corrupt ones, could easily break down or turn out to be ineffectual, and that the text thus ultimately frets over the limits of the self and how desire threatens and transforms those limits. William Vider's earlier authoritative reading situates Carmilla as ultimately a tale of repression, exposing contemporary concerns that orthodox attitudes towards sexual purity had caused a dangerous split between conscious and unconscious.
Sleepy.
I guess. Critical readings of Carmilla thus often foreground the psychological complexity of the text's engagements with the unconscious and subjectivity. Holy shit, this intro is long.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that.
You know what? We ain't got time. Oh my God, all right, we don't got time for this. We're skipping it.
Oh my God.
All right.
That's the intro. I hope you liked it.
We're very professional. That is like literally like 10 whole pages. I'm not reading all that.
Wow.
Listen. Listen, the PDF is free on Google. If you want to read the whole analysis, like, go ahead. This is a reading stream, not an analysis stream. Hi, honey, how you doing? Ain't nobody got time for that. All right. Without further ado, Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu. Prologue.
Paying you.
Upon a paper attached to the narrative which follows, Dr. Hesselius has written a rather elaborate note, which he accompanies with a reference to his essay on the strange subject which the MS illuminates. I don't think that it means misses. I think it means something else, like message or something, but anyway, it doesn't matter. The mysterious subject he treats.
Yeah, some of those old works have that forward.
That just explain the text before you even get to read it. Yeah. It's like spoiling the whole story.
Oh my god.
The mysterious subject he treats in that essay with his usual learning and acumen with remarkable directness and condensation. It will form but one volume of the series of that extraordinary man's collected papers. As I publish the case in these volumes, simply to interest the laity, I shall forestall the intelligent lady who relates it in nothing. And, after due consideration, I have determined, therefore, to abstain from presenting any, oh God, that's a French word, précis of the learned doctor's reasoning, or extract from his statement on a subject which he describes as involving, not improperly, some of the profoundest arcane of our dual existence and its intermediates. It's like they had a class assignment to analyze a story and it got added to the... I know, they should really put it to the end.
Oh, touching.
So what I'm gathering from... I swear, the rest of the story is not nearly this difficult to understand. But what I'm gathering is this story is being told to us through, like, an essay. Like, some guy's writing it down and he's trying not to, like, expose Laura, so he's not, like, maybe using her real name or something like that. Anyway. I was anxious on discovering this paper, and to reopen the correspondence commenced by Dr. Hesselius so many years before with a person so clever and careful as his informant seems to have been. Much to my regret, however, I found that she died in the interval. She probably could have added little to the narrative which she communicates in the following pages with, so far as I can pronounce, such a conscientious particularity. Oh my God, I made it through.
You did such a good job. You finished the whole book.
I finished the whole book. Chapter 1, An Early Fright.
You'll have to tell me when you want me to read.
There's gonna be a lot of narration, but when we get to some speaking parts, I'll ask you to jump in.
Wow.
If we have some dialogue, or if we can take turns.
Hey, it's your stream.
We'll figure it out, but I'll get started. All right. In Styria, we, though by no means magnificent people, inhabit a castle, or Schloss.
No!
Schloss is a German word which means castle, chateau, mansion. I had to look it up.
The word is fine. It's just very weird.
The Schloss. Mein Fräulein, we must get to the Schloss.
Oh my God.
Anyway, a small income in that part of the world goes a great way. 800 or 900 a year does wonders. Scantily enough, ours would have answered among wealthy people at home. My father is English, and I bear an English name, although I never saw England. But here, in this lonely and primitive place where everything is so marvelously cheap, I really don't see how ever so much more money would at all materially add to our comforts, or even luxuries. Girls privileged.
Yeah.
My father was in the Austrian service and retired upon a pension and his patrimony and purchased this feudal residence and the small estate on which it stands. A bargain. Shit, it was 99 cents. Nothing can be more picturesque or solitary. It stands on a slight eminence in a forest. The road, very old and narrow, passes in front of its drawbridge, never raised in my time, and its moat stocked with perch and sailed over by many swans, and floating on its surface, white fleets of water lilies.
Yuri.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go.
So before I keep reading, there's just a little note at the bottom that the Duchy of Styria...
The ducky?
Yeah, so like a duke rules over it. Yeah.
Ducky.
Oh my god. So it was currently located in Slovenia. So yeah, it's German language references to Styria more. Okay. So it takes place in like a German-speaking area that today comprises part of Austria. So just a little background. Overall,
God, and how do you remember she's making a potato?
Oh my god, that's right.
Donnie, no.
Did you remember your sweet... Did you remember the sweet potato?
Oh my god.
Oh god, I hope so.
This is an emergency.
Overall, the Schloss shows its many windowed front.
Okay.
Oh, thank
potato's
God.
not gonna burn everything.
Thank God. Its many windowed front, its towers, and its Gothic chapel. The forest opens in an irregular and very picturesque glade before its gate.
It's just like Strawberry Panic.
Oh my God. We were watching that before we started stream.
Yeah.
And at the right, a steep Gothic bridge carries the road over a stream that the wind in deep shadow, that winds in deep shadow through the wood. I have said that this is a very lonely place. Judge whether I say truth. Looking from the hall down towards the road, the forest in which our castle stands extends 15 miles to the right and 12 to the left. The nearest...
That's really specific.
Yeah. Girl has no internet. She got nothing better to do.
Okay, yeah.
The nearest inhabited village is about 7 of your English miles to the left. The nearest inhabited Schloss of any historic associations is that of old General Spielsdorf, nearly 20 miles away to the right.
Oh my god.
Oh, don't worry, girl. We get to keep saying that name. I have said the nearest inhabited village because there is only 3 miles westward, that is to say in the direction of General Spielsdorf's Schloss, a ruined village with its quaint little church, now roofless, in the Isles of...
Look at that.
Yeah. In the Isle of which are moldering tombs of the proud family of Karnstein, now extinct, who once owned the equally desolate chateau which, in the thick of the forest, overlooks the silent ruins of the town. The Karnsteins. I wonder if we'll find out more information about them later.
I doubt it.
Yeah, you're right, they don't matter.
Why do you hate me?
Because I love you.
Thank you. Mwah.
Thank you. Respecting the cause of the desertion of this striking and melancholy spot, there is a legend which I shall now relate to you another time.
Who's talking?
Laura.
Okay.
She's narrating.
Okay.
Oh God, my earphone keeps falling out. Rip me.
My goodness.
I must tell you now how very small is the party who constitute the inhabitants of our castle. I don't include servants because they're poor and I'm rich.
Shut up!
Or those dependents who occupy rooms in the buildings attached to the Schloss.
Oh my god, if you look at your stream setup, he looks so bad.
Who looks at?
The creature.
The rat?
in their desktop background, he's like, why aren't I there?
Oh, on the Moomin background. Oh my god. You're so distracted by everything.
See me play Hello Kitty Island Adventure. I apparently get quite distracted.
It's okay, it's all good.
Thank you.
God, where was I? Look what you've done. You've made me lose my place. Oh, okay. Alright. So she doesn't include servants or other poor people. Listen and wonder. My father, who is the kindest man on earth, but growing old, and I, at the date of my story, only 19. 8 years have passed since then.
Wait.
So at the time of the story,
11?
No. She's 19 in the story, and she's narrating this to us like 8 years later.
Okay, so she's like 27.
Yeah. I like how I'm actively explaining it and you cut me off.
I'm doing so good.
Yeah.
Girl, uninvite me. Get me out.
No, I need your help reading.
Just like put me in your bedroom. I can like roll around on your bed.
No, I need you to help me. Oh my god. Jesus Christ. All right.
Really nicely.
8 years have passed since then. I and my father constituted the family at the Schloss. My mother, a Styrian lady, died in my infancy, but I had a good-natured governess who has been with me from, I might almost say, my infancy.
Oh my god.
I could not remember the time when her fat,
I'm sorry.
I couldn't remember a time where that fat ass. I couldn't remember a time where her fat, benign face was not a familiar picture in my memory.
But now, isn't that stupid?
No, it's harmless.
Oh.
Like,
that rat is benign. The rat with rabies is benign, don't worry.
oh my god. Jesus Christ, maybe I should kick you out.
I'm gonna stop talking.
No, you could talk.
No.
This is Madame Peridon, a native of Bern, whose care and good nature in part supplied to me the loss of my mother, whom I do not even remember. So early I lost her. She made a third of our little dinner party. There was a fourth. Mademoiselle de Lefontaine, a lady such as you term, I believe, a finishing governess. She spoke French and German. Madame Peridon French and broken English, to which my father and I added English, which partly to prevent its becoming a lost language among us, and partly from patriotic motives. We spoke every day. The consequence was a babble, at which strangers used to laugh, and which I shall make no attempt to reproduce in this narrative. And there were 2 or 3 young lady friends besides, pretty nearly of my own age, who were occasional visitors, for longer or shorter terms, and these visits I sometimes returned. These were our regular social resources, but of course there were chance visits from neighbors of only 5 or 6 leagues distance. My life was, notwithstanding, rather a solitary one, I can assure you. My gouvernante had just so much control over me as you might conjecture such a sage persons would have in the case of a rather spoiled girl, whose only parent allowed her pretty nearly her own way in everything. The first occurrence in my existence which produced a terrible impression upon my mind, which in fact never had been effaced, was one of the very earliest incidents of my life which I can recollect. Some people will think it so trifling that it should not be recorded here. You will see, however, by the by, why I mentioned it. The nursery, as it was called, though I have had it all to myself, was a large room in the upper story of the castle, with a steep oak roof. I can't have been more than 6 years old when one night I awoke, and looking round the room, from my bed, failed to see the nursery maid. Neither was my nurse there, and I thought myself alone. I was not frightened, for I was one of those happy children who studiously kept in ignorance of ghost stories, of fairy tales, and of all such lore as makes us cover up our heads when the door creaks. Suddenly, or the flicker of an expiring candle makes the shadow of a bedpost dance upon the wall, nearer to our faces. I was vexed and insulted at finding myself, as I conceived, neglected, and I began to whimper, preparatory to a hearty bout of roaring, when to my surprise, I saw a solemn but very pretty face looking at me from the side of the bed. It was that of a young lady who was kneeling, with her hands under the coverlet. I looked at her with a kind of pleased wonder and ceased whimpering. She caressed me with her hands and lay down beside me on the bed and drew me towards her, smiling. I felt immediately delightfully soothed.
Gay?
She's sick.
Wait. I first realized I liked girls when I was like in second grade.
All right, fine, fair enough.
When did y'all realize your sexualities? Comment in below, like and subscribe.
Tell the message. Oh, your message got blocked because you said gay. There you go. I'll allow it. All right. Okay, I felt immediately delightfully soothed and fell asleep again. I was wakened by a sensation as if 2 needles ran into my breast very deep at the same moment, and I cried loudly. The lady started back with her eyes fixed on me, and then slipped down upon the floor, as I thought, hid herself under the bed. I was now for the first time frightened, and I yelled with all my might and main, "Eh?" Nurse, nursery maid, housekeeper all came running in, and hearing my story, they made light of it, soothing me all they could, meanwhile. But, child as I was, I could perceive that their faces were pale, with an unwonted look of anxiety, and I saw them look under the bed and about the room, and peep under the tables, and pluck open cupboards. And the housekeeper whispered to the nurse, "Lay your hand along the hollow in the bed. Someone did lie there, so sure as you did not. The place is still warm." I remember the nursery maid petting me, and all 3 examining my chest, where I told them I felt the puncture, and the pronouncing that there was no sign visible that any such thing had happened to me. Boo. What are you booing? Are you booing the fact that her nap got interrupted?
Yeah.
She's just so thirsty. The housekeeper and the other 2 other servants who were in charge of the nursery remained sitting up all night. And from that time, a servant always sat up in my nursery until I was about 14. I was very nervous for a long time after this. A doctor was called in. He was pallid and elderly. How well I remembered his long, saturnine face, slightly pitted with smallpox, and his chestnut wig. For a good while, every second day, he came and gave me medicine, which of course I hated. Oh no, that my comment got blocked. I'll have to figure that out, but we'll see. The morning after I saw this apparition, I was in a state of terror and could not bear to be left alone, daylight though it was, for a moment. I remember my father coming up and standing at the bedside and talking cheerfully and asking the nurse a number of questions and laughing very heartily at one of the answers. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And patting me on the shoulder and kissing me and telling me not to be frightened, and that it was nothing but a dream and could not hurt me. But I was not comforted, for I knew this visit of the strange woman was not a dream, and I was awfully frightened. I was a little consoled by the nursemaids assuring me that it was she who had come in and looked at me and laid down beside me in the bed, and that I must have been half dreaming not to have known her face. But this, though supported by the nurses, did not quite satisfy me. I remember in the course of the day, a venerable old man in a black cassock coming into the room with the nurse and housekeeper, and talking a little to them, and very kindly to me. His face was very sweet and gentle, and he told me that they were going to pray, and joined my hands together, and desired me to say softly, while they were praying, "Lord, hear all the good prayers for us, for Jesus' sake." I think these were the very words, for I often repeated them to myself, and my nurse used for years to make me say them in my prayers. I remember so well the thoughtful, sweet face of that white-haired old man in his black cassock as he stood in that rude, lofty, brown room, with the clumsy furniture of a fashion 300 years old about him, and the scanty light entering its shadowy atmosphere through the small lattice. He kneeled, and the three women with him, and he prayed aloud with an earnest, quavering voice for, what appeared to me, a long time. I forget all my life preceding that event, and for some time after it is also obscured also. But the scenes I have just described stand out vivid as the isolated pictures of the phantasmagoria surrounded by darkness.
Dun, dun, dun.
Just as I finish, there's like a crow playing on the audio. That's
Wow.
great timing.
Good timing.
Time for a sip. We're already up to page 9. We're on a roll.
Good job.
Chapter 2. A guest.
It's me.
It's you.
That's scary.
There might be some dialogue you can...
Oh my goodness. It's gonna be my turn.
Oh, there is some dialogue. You want to come over here and...
Sit on your lap.
No. Just... Oh my god.
Here.
All right. Just read this as...
Okay, right now.
What? No. Don't wait for me to get there. All right. Chapter 2, a guest. Really? God damn it. I am now going to tell you something so strange that it will...
What's your problem?
That it will require all your faith in my veracity to believe my story. It is not only true, nevertheless, but truth of which I have been an eyewitness. It was a sweet summer evening, and my father asked me, as he sometimes did, to take a little ramble with him along the beautiful forest.
Ramble?
Yeah. Along that beautiful forest vista, which I have mentioned as lying in front of the Schloss.
General Spalesdorf cannot come to us so soon as I had hoped.
Said my father as we pursued our walk.
Laugh.
Yeah.
Oh my god, am I gonna read all the dialogue? I'm so excited.
Yeah. There is one line I'd like to read.
Okay.
But for now. And then if you want to read, I don't know, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Anyway. He was to have paid us a visit of some weeks, and we had expected his arrival next day. He was to have brought with him a young lady, his niece and ward, Mademoiselle Reinfeldt, whom I had never seen, but whom I had heard described as a very charming girl, and in whose society I had promised myself many happy days. I was more disappointed than a young lady living in a town or bustling neighborhood can possibly imagine. This visit and the new acquaintance it promised had furnished my daydream for many weeks.
And how soon does he come?
I asked.
Not till autumn, not for 2 months, I dare say.
He answered.
And I am very glad now, dear, that you never knew Mademoiselle Reinfeldt.
And why? Oh no, that...
And why?
Whoops. Jesus.
She's mortified. I packed it up.
Very good.
Thank you.
I asked, both mortified and curious.
Oh, okay. Because the poor young lady is dead.
She's dead and you're laughing. He replied.
I quite forgot I had not told you, but you were not in the room when I received the general. #1 letter this morning.
Oh my god. I was very much shocked. General Spielsdorf had mentioned in his first letter, 6 or 7 weeks before, that she was not so well as he would have wished her. But there was nothing to suggest the remotest suspicion of danger.
Here's the general's letter,
He said, handling it to me.
I'm afraid he is in great affliction. The letter appears to have been written very nearly in distraction.
We sat down on a rude bench.
Rude.
Yeah, it swore at them. Under a group of magnificent lime trees.
Lime?
Yeah?
It's insane.
Why is that insane?
Have you ever seen a group of lime trees?
I mean, lemons grow on trees. Why wouldn't limes?
But like, as a group?
It's like
How'd
a
they
small orchard. They
Yeah.
planted them. How do you mean? How did they get them? What do you mean? How else would you get trees?
Being bullied.
These,
Ban her.
these trees.
Like apples. Let's go to a lime orchard.
These trees. How did they get here? They walked. Come back here. We sat down under, magnificent lime trees. The sun was setting with all its melancholy splendor behind the Sylvan horizon, and the stream that flows beside our home and passes under the steep old bridge. I have mentioned, wound through many a group of noble trees, almost at our feet, reflecting in its current the fading crimson of the sky. General Spieldorf's letter was so extraordinary, so vehement, and in some places so self-contradictory that I read it twice over. Please don't bump the mic.
I'm not touching anymore.
Oh my God.
No, I'm not touching you. My hands are up in the air, everyone. I'm not touching her.
Wave them up in the air like you just don't care.
I care a lot. I have anxiety.
Oh my god. Please. It's fine. Yes. I read it twice over, the second time aloud to my father, and was still unable to account for it, except by supposing that grief had unsettled his mind. Hold on, let me scroll down. It said,
I have lost my darling daughter. For as such, I loved her. During the last days of dear Bertha's illness, I was not able to write to you. Before then, I had no idea of her danger. I have lost her, and now learn all too late. She died in the peace of innocence and in the glorious hope of a blessed perpetuity. The fiend who betrayed our infatuated hospitality has done it all. I thought I was receiving onto my house innocence, gaiety, a charming companion for my lost Bertha. Heavens, what a fool I have been. Thank God my child died without a suspicion of the cause of her sufferings. She is gone without so much as conjecturing the nature of her illness, the accursed passion of the agent of all this misery. I devote my remaining days to tracking and extinguishing a monster. I am told I may hope to accomplish my righteous and merciful purpose. At present, there is scarcely a gleam of light to guide me. I curse my conceited incredulity, my despicable affection of my superiority, my blindness, my obstinacy. All too late. I cannot write or talk collectively. Oh my god, me too. I am distracted. So soon as I shall have a little recovered, I mean to devote myself for a time to inquiry, which may possibly lead me to as far as Vienna. Sometime in the autumn, 2 months hence, or earlier if I live, I will see you. That is, if you permit me. I will then tell you that I scarce dare put upon paper now. Farewell, pray for me, dear friend.
so Bertha was killed.
Bertha's dead.
But it's okay, she'll come back. And Yetha.
This is the prequel!
The Poopsie the Killer.
Poopsie!
That was a good job, though. You did great.
Did I?
Yeah.
Wow, thanks.
You just had a trouble on some of the fancy words.
I tried so hard.
You did. You're fine. In these terms ended this strange letter.
God, you're like, I'm so good at reading, and I'm like, strong.
Yeah. Though I had never seen Bertha Reinfeldt, my eyes filled with tears at the sudden intelligence. I was startled as well as profoundly disappointed.
Brain blast.
Yeah. The sun had now set, and it was twilight by the time I returned the general's letter to my father.
Wow, that's a long time.
She was just lamenting. She's like, I'm so lonely.
I'm so sad.
I'm so sad. It was a soft, clear evening, and we loitered, speculating upon the possible meanings of the violent and incoherent sentences.
Wait, the letter was violent and incoherent, so I wasn't just being stupid?
What do you mean?
He's saying violent and incoherent sentences, and I was just like babbling, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm saying.
mean, like, his daughter died, so he's like,
Wait.
yeah, he's like vowing to like hunt down a monster.
Oh,
and they're like,
him down.
he's like, I invited a monster into my house and they murdered
That's
my
true, we
daughter.
know
I'm
the
gonna hunt them
monster.
down. And they're like, what the hell is this?
He's just being a baby. It's okay.
He's going through it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Girl, you gotta stop interrupting me mid-sentence.
Oh my god, sorry, you're at violence.
Okay, violent and incoherent sentences, which I had just been reading. We had nearly a mile to walk before reaching the road that passes the Schloss in front, and by that time the moon was shining brightly. At the drawbridge, we met Madame Perrodon and Mademoiselle de La Fontaine,
Oh
who
god.
had come out with their bonnets to enjoy the exquisite moonlight.
Oh my god, they're dating.
Well, in the web series.
Ooh. Oh my god, it's Perry.
Yeah, Perry and La Fontaine.
Oh my god, we found it.
We heard their voices gabbling in animated dialogue as we approached. We joined them at the drawbridge and turned about to admire with them the beautiful scene. The glade through which we had just walked lay before us. At our left, the narrow road wound under clumps of lordly trees and was lost to sight amid the thickening forest. At the right, the same road crossed the steep and picturesque bridge, near which stands a ruined tower which once guarded that pass, and beyond the bridge an abrupt eminence rises, covered with trees, and showing in the shadows some gray, ivy-clustered rocks. Over the sward and low grounds, a thin film of mist was stealing like smoke, marking the distance with transparent veil. And here and there, we could see the river faintly flashing in the moonlight. No softer, sweeter scene could be imagined. The news I had just heard made it melancholy, but nothing could disturb its character of profound serenity and the enchanted glory and vagueness of the prospect. My father, who enjoyed the picturesque, and I, stood looking in silence over the expanse beneath us. The two good governesses, standing a little way behind us, discoursed upon the scene and were eloquent upon the moon. Oh God. Madame Perrodon was fat, middle-aged, and romantic, and talked and sighed poetically. Mademoiselle de La Fontaine, in right of her father, who was a German, assumed to be psychological, metaphysical, and something of a mystic. One of them old-fashioned crystal healers.
Yeah.
Now declared that when the moon shone with a light so intense, it was well known that it indicated a special spiritual activity. The effect of the full moon in such a state of brilliance was manifold. It acted on dreams, it acted on lunacy, it acted on nervous people. It had marvelous physical influences connected with life. Mademoiselle related that her cousin, who was mate of a merchant ship, having taken a nap on the deck of such a night, lying on his back with his face full in the light of the moon, had wakened after a dream of an old woman clawing him by the cheek, with his features horribly drawn to one side, and his countenance had never quite recovered its equilibrium.
The moon this night,
She said,
is so full of odylic and magnetic influence And see, when you look behind you at the front of the Schloss, and how all its windows flash and twinkle with that silvery splendor, as if unseen hands have lightened up the rooms to receive fairy guests.
There are indolent states of the spirits in which, indisposed to talk ourselves, the talk of others is pleasant to our listless ears. And I gazed on, pleased with the tinkle of the ladies' conversation.
I've got to get into one of my mopping moods tonight.
Moping.
Moping!
This whole mood just makes me want to mop the floors. Come here. Come here.
Okay.
I love you.
Okay, so I have to get into one of my moping moods tonight,
said my father after a silence, and quoting Shakespeare, who, by way of keeping up our English, he used to read aloud, he said,
In truth, I know not why I am so sad. It wearies me. Wearies me. You say it wearies you. But how I got it came by it. I forget the rest, but I feel as if some great misfortune were hanging over us. I suppose the poor general's afflicted letter has something to do with it.
I'm thinking of mopping moods. You did such a good job. I'm sorry, it's just a really funny mental image of him just furiously mopping the floor. I love you. At this... Ooh. Things are gonna get interesting.
Spicy?
At this moment, the unwanted sound of the carriage wheels and many hooves upon the ground
Badabadee.
Yeah, the Badabadies are here. Arrested our attention. They seemed to be approaching from the high ground overlooking the bridge, and very soon the equipage emerged from that point. 2 horsemen first crossed the bridge, and then came a carriage drawn by 4 horses, and 2 men rode behind. It immediately, it seemed to be traveling, my God, I'm also struggling. It seemed to be the traveling carriage of a person of rank. And
me.
Yeah, rank is you stay. Kidding.
Rank is I stink at reading.
No. Person of rank, and we were all immediately absorbed in watching that very unusual spectacle. It became, in a few moments, greatly more interesting, for just as the carriage had passed the summit of the steep bridge, one of the leaders, taking fright, communicated his panic to the rest, and after a plunge or two, the whole team broke into a wild gallop together, and dashing between the horsemen who rode in front, came thundering along the roads towards us with the speed of a hurricane. The excitement of the scene was made more painful by the clear, long-drawn screams of female voice coming from the carriage window. We all advanced in curiosity and horror, my father in silence, and the rest of us with various ejaculations of terror. I didn't even say anything.
You looked at me.
Yeah.
Because you loved me?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just, reading ejaculations of terror. Wink. Gotta love old-timey language. Our suspense did not last long. Just before you reach the castle drawbridge on the route they were coming, there stands by the roadside a magnificent lime tree. But how did it get there?
Oh my God, how did it get there?
On the other stands an ancient stone cross, at sight of which the horses, now going at a pace that was perfectly frightening, swerved as to bring the wheel over the projecting roots of the tree. I knew what was coming. I covered my eyes, unable to see it out, and turned my head away. At the same moment, I heard a cry from my lady friends, who had gone on a little. Curiosity opened my eyes, and I saw a scene of utter confusion. 2 of the horses were on the ground, and the carriage lay upon its side with 2 wheels.
This is just like JoJo's.
Everything is just like
No,
JoJo's
but this
Bear.
is the first episode begins with like a carriage like breaking like this.
Okay.
Because the first part of Job, well, I know this is not Dracula, but like the first part of Job
It's based off Dracula.
It's based off, but yeah.
Stop the coach.
It can't be stopped.
2 wheels in the air. The men were busy removing the traces, and a lady with a commanding air and figure had got out.
Figure.
Yeah, she's like standing up
Big
straight.
titties.
Sure. And stood with clasped hands, raising a handkerchief that was in them every now and then to her eyes.
She's crying.
Yeah. Through the carriage door was now lifted a young lady who appeared to be lifeless. My dear old father was already beside the elder lady with his hat in his hand, evidently tendering his aid and the resources of the Schloss. The lady did not appear to hear him or to have eyes for anything but the slender girl who was being placed against the slope of the bank. I approached. The young lady was apparently stunned, but she was certainly not dead. My father, who piqued himself on being something of a physician, had just had his fingers to her wrist and assured the lady, who declared herself her mother, that her pulse, though faint and irregular, was undoubtedly still distinguishable. The lady clasped her hands and looked upward, as if in a momentary transport of gratitude, but immediately she broke out again in the theatrical way which is, I believe, natural to some people. She was what is called a fine-looking woman for her time of life, and must have been handsome. She was tall, but not thin, and dressed in black velvet, and looked rather pale, but with a proud and commanding countenance, though now agitated strangely.
Was ever being so born to calamity? What on earth? Was ever being so born to calamity?
I heard her say, with her clasped hands, and I came up.
Here I am on a journey of life and death, in prosecuting which to lose an hour is possibly to lose all. My child would not have recovered sufficiently to resume her route for who can say how long. I must leave her. I cannot dare say delay. How far on, sir, can you tell me, is the nearest village? I must leave her there, and I shall not see my darling or even hear of her till my return 3 months hence.
I plucked my father by the coat and whispered earnestly in his ear,
Oh, Papa, pray ask her to let her stay with us. It would be so delightful. Do pray. If Madam would entrust her child to the care of my daughter and of her good governorette, Madam Perdon, permit her to remain our guest under my charge until her return. It will confer a distinction and obligation upon us, and we will treat her with all the care and devotion which is so sacred and a trust deserves. I cannot do that, sir. It would be to task your kindness and chivalry too cruelly,
said the lady distractedly.
It would, on the contrary, be to confer us on a very great kindness at the moment when we most need it. My daughter has been disappointed by a cruel misfortune, in a visit which she has been long anticipated a great deal of happiness. If you confide this young lady to our care, it will be her best consolation. The nearest village on your route is distant, and affords no such inn as you could think of placing your daughter at. You cannot allow her to continue her journey for any considerable distance without danger. If, as you say, you cannot suspend your journey, you must part with her tonight, and nowhere could you do so more honest assurances of care and tenderness than here. So, he's like, my daughter wants a pet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, she's like in shock and she can't keep traveling. Oh, Papa.
I want this one.
Let her stay with us. I'm so terribly bored and lonely.
Yeah.
There was something in this lady's air and appearance so distinguished and even imposing.
Oh, God.
And in her manner so engaging as to impress one, quite apart from the dignity of her equipage, with a conviction that she was a person of consequence. And by this time the carriage was replaced in its upright position, and the horses quite tractable in the traces again. The lady threw on her daughter a glance, which I fancied was not quite so affectionate as one might have anticipated from the beginning of the scene. And then she beckoned slightly to my father and withdrew 2 or 3 steps with him out of hearing and talked to him with a fixed and stern countenance, not at all like that with which she had hitherto spoken. I was filled with wonder that my father did not seem to perceive the change, and also unspeakably curious to learn what it could be that she was speaking, almost in his ear, with so much earnestness and rapidity. 2 or 3 minutes at most, I think she remained thus employed, and then she turned, and a few steps brought her to where her daughter lay, supported by Madame Perrodon. She kneeled beside her a moment and whispered, as Madame supposed, a little benediction in her ear. Then hastily kissing her, thanks, she stepped into her carriage. The door was closed. The footman in stately liveries jumped up behind. The outriders spurred on, and the postilions cracked their whips. The horses plunged and broke suddenly into a furious canter that threatened soon again to become a gallop, and the carriage whirled away, followed at the same rapid pace by the 2 horsemen in the rear. Yes.
You're doing such a great job. You should read by yourself.
I'm happy you're here,
Oh my god.
even though you're going feral.
I'm trying my best to read.
I know. Let's start chapter 3.
We compare notes.
Yeah, we're studying.
How many chapters are there?
I'm not sure, but we're already up to page 19.
Let me just Google how many chapters are in Carmilla.
Okay. It's not a terribly long story, but we will probably have to split this into multiple streams, so.
16 including a prologue, apparently.
Okay. 16.
16 divided by 4 is 4.
So we could read a couple more chapters.
Up to you.
I think so. Or at least I can keep going for
Or we
now.
could do 8. Up to 8, not 18. Oh my god.
18 chapters. Oh my goodness.
I'm patting you.
You're patting me the opposite way that my hair is growing.
Don't worry about it.
Oh my god. We followed the cortege with our eyes until it was swiftly lost to sight in the misty woods, and the very sound of the hooves and the wheels died away in the silent night air. Nothing remained to assure us that the adventure had not been an illusion of a moment but the young lady who just at that moment opened her eyes. I could not see, for her face was turned from me, but she raised her head, evidently looking about her, and I heard a very sweet voice ask complainingly,
Where's Mama?
Our good Madame Perrodon answered tenderly and added some comfortable assurances. I then heard her ask,
Where am I? What is this place?
and after all that she said,
I don't see the carriage. And Matska? Where is she?
Madame answered all her questions insofar as she understood them, and gradually the young lady remembered how the misadventure came about, and was glad to hear that no one in or in attendance on the carriage was hurt. And on learning that her mamma had left her here till her return in about 3 months, she wept. Wing.
Oh, wait.
I was going to add my consolations to those of Madame Perrodon and Mademoiselle de La Fontaine. Oh, when Mademoiselle de La Fontaine placed her hand upon my arm, saying,
Don't approach. One at a time is as much as she can at present converse with. A very little excitement would possibly overpower her now.
As soon as she is comfortably in bed, I thought, I will run up to her room and see her.
Oh my god.
Breaks down door. Hey!
Oh my god.
My father, in the meantime, had sent a servant on horseback for the physician, who lived about 2 leagues away, and the bedroom was being prepared for the young lady's reception. The stranger now rose, and leaning on Madame's arm, walked slowly over the drawbridge and into the castle gate. In the hall, servants waited to receive her, and she was conducted forthwith to her room. The room we usually sat in, as our drawing room is long, having 4 windows that looked over the moat and drawbridge upon the forest scene I have just described. It is furnished in old carved oak, with large curved cabinets, and the chairs are cushioned with crimson, oh god, Utrecht velvet. I have no idea if I pronounced that right.
Let's see, what word?
This one.
Utrecht? Utrecht?
Maybe. The walls are covered with a tapestry and surrounded with great gold frames, the figures being as large as life, in ancient and very curious costume, and its subjects represented are hunting, hawking, and generally festive. It is not too stately to be extremely comfortable, and here we had our tea. For with his usual patriotic leanings, he insisted that the national beverage should make its appearance regularly with our coffee and chocolate. Good times.
Le chocolat?
Le chocolat. This isn't a French story, but whatever.
Oui, oui.
We sat here this night, and with candles lighted, we were talking over the adventure of the evening. Madame Perrodon and Mademoiselle de La Fontaine were both of our party. The young stranger had hardly lain down in her bed when she sank into a deep sleep, and those ladies had left her in the care of a servant.
How do you like our guest?
I asked as soon as Madame entered.
Tell me all about her. I like her extremely,
answered Madame.
She is, I almost think, the prettiest creature I ever saw. About your age and so gentle and nice. She's absolutely beautiful,
threw in Mademoiselle, who had peeped for a moment into the stranger's room.
And such a sweet voice,
added Madame Perrodon.
Did you remark a woman in the carriage after it was set up again who did not get out?
Inquired Mademoiselle.
But only looked from the window? No, we had not seen her.
Oh dear. Oh no.
Okay, so racism. And then, did you remark? Okay, did you want to read it or skip that part?
I'm gonna read it, but, you know, I mean, if it was a slur being used, I wouldn't read it. You know, it is what it is. I think we're all mature enough to handle the historical context.
We think black women are beautiful.
Yeah, and Laura's just kind of poopy for saying such a thing, because, you know.
We hate her.
I mean,
Die.
She's a product of her time, but yeah, definitely problematic. Anyway, then she described a hideous black woman with a sort of colored turban on her head. Wow, that's okay. Who was gazing all the time from the carriage window, nodding and grinning derisively. I don't remember reading this part, but okay, towards the ladies with gleaming eyes and large white eyeballs, and her teeth set as in a fury.
Girl,
I don't think you could have written a more racist description if you tried.
I'm sure.
You know, no, you know what? I'm not even gonna go there.
What an ill-looking pack of men the servants were?
Yes. Sorry. Said my father, who had just come in.
Ugly, hangdog-looking fellows as I ever beheld in my life. Hope they mayn't rob the poor lady in the forest. They are clever rogues, however. They got everything to rights in a minute. I dare say they were worn out with too long traveling,
said Madame.
Besides looking wicked, their faces were so strangely lean, dark, and sullen. I'm very curious, I own. But I dare say the young lady will tell us all about it tomorrow. If she is sufficiently recovered, I don't think she will,
said my father with a mysterious smile and a little nod of his head, as if he knew more about it than he cared to tell us.
What? What a little freak.
This made me all the more inquisitive as to what had passed between him and the lady in the black velvet in the brief but earnest interview. Oh, you know what? I just realized. So, I'm sorry, this is extremely off topic. Let me finish this
one sentence.
In the brief but earnest interview that had immediately preceded her departure. Okay, so, in 2013, There was a Carmilla web series, which is on YouTube for free. I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun.
Sponsored by Kotex.
Sponsored by you by Kotex. It's like a modern retelling, and they changed a lot of things about it, though. Like, they changed a lot of the more problematic elements.
Clearly, it's rewritten and a retelling.
Right. Now, one of the things that I just remembered is in the web series, Matska, or Maddie, is Carmilla's quote-unquote sister, right? So she was basically a woman who is in the same situation as Carmilla. They're both under the control of her mother. Did you just bonk your head on the ceiling?
Yeah, that's what I get for pacing.
Oh, God. So I just think it's very interesting that, like, even though the description of Matska is obviously extremely, like, problematic and not great, they took her character and they changed a lot about her, and, you know, they got a black actress to play her, and she's absolutely beautiful and talented. So I don't know, I just think it's very interesting. Like, I just realized, like, oh yeah, they did include this character, but they took an ugly part of the story and made it, like, beautiful. Yeah, they took an ugly part of the story and adapted it in a way that added something to the characters and it added something to the plot. So, just a little tangent. Or you bonked your head on the...
I hope that did not pick up on the mic, but it probably did.
All right. We were scarcely alone when I entreated him to tell me he did not need much pressing.
There is no particular reason why I should not tell you. She has expressed a reluctance to trouble us with the care of her daughter, saying that she is in delicate health and nervous, but not to subject to any kind of seizure. She volunteered that, nor any illusion being, in fact, perfectly sane. How very odd to say all that.
Oh, Jesus.
Wow.
Interpolated.
Thank God I didn't read that. It was too unnecessary. It was so unnecessary, excuse me. All the events, it was said.
He laughed.
And as you wish to know all that passed, which was indeed very little, I tell you, she then said, I am making a long journey of vital importance. She emphasized the word rapid and secret. I shall return for my child in 3 months. In the meantime, she will be silent as to who we are, whence we come, and whither we are traveling. That is all she said. She spoke in a very pure French. When she said the word secret. She paused for a few seconds, looking sternly with her eyes fixated on mine. I fancy she makes a great point of that. You saw how quickly she was gone. I hope I have not done a very foolish thing, taking charge of the young lady.
For my part, I was delighted.
Yay!
I was longing to see and talk to her, and only waiting till the doctor should give me leave. You, who live in towns, can have no idea how great an event the introduction of a new friend is in such a solitude as surrounded us. Except now, in the modern day, we're more isolated than ever.
Yeah.
Not me, though. I got tons of friends.
Good. Me with my 900 alt account. No, you have lots of friends.
Yeah.
No.
All my subscribers, your alt accounts.
You are so loved.
Thank you. You are loved too.
Yay, thank you.
The doctor did not arrive till nearly 1 o'clock, but I could no more have gone to my bed and slept than I could have overtaken on foot the carriage in which the princess in black velvet had driven away. When the physician came down to the drawing room, yes.
I was gonna say why something bothered me, but I'm not gonna say it. Let me...
Okay. It was... Okay, when the physician came down to the drawing room, it was to report very favorably upon his patient. She was now sitting up, her pulse quite regular, apparently perfectly well. She had sustained no injury, and the little shock to her nerves had passed away quite harmlessly.
That's what I'm thinking of, but I never said it. I'm so proud.
Oh, I see. Sitting up, pulse regular, appearing perfectly well. She had sustained no injury, and the little shock to her nerves had passed away quite harmlessly. There could be no harm, certainly, in my seeing her, if we both wished it, and with this permission, I sent forthwith to know whether she would allow me to visit her for a few minutes in her room. The servant returned immediately to say that she desired nothing more. I bet. You may be sure I was not long in availing myself of this permission. Our visitor lay in one of the handsomest rooms in the Schloss. It was perhaps a little stately. There was a somber piece of tapestry opposite the foot of the bed, representing Cleopatra with the asps to her bosom. Yeah, you heard me.
Oh.
And other solemn classic scenes were displayed, a little faded, upon the other walls. But there was gold carving and rich and varied color enough in the other decorations of the room to more than redeem the gloom of the old tapestry. There were candles at the bedside, and she was sitting up, her slender, pretty figure enveloped in the soft silk dressing gown embroidered with flowers that lined with thick quilted silk, which her mother had thrown over her feet as she lay on the ground. What was it that, as I reached the bedside and had just begun my little greeting, struck me dumb in a moment and made me recoil a step or two from before her? I will tell you. I saw the very face which had visited me in my childhood at night, which remained so fixed in my memory, and on which I had for so many years so often ruminated with horror, when no one suspected of what I was thinking. It was pretty, even beautiful, and when I first beheld it, wore the same melancholy expression. But this almost instantly lighted into a strange fixed smile of recognition. There was silence of fully a minute, and then at length she spoke. I could not.
How wonderful!
She exclaimed.
12 years ago, I saw your face in a dream, and it has haunted me ever since. Wonderful indeed.
I repeated, overcoming with an effort the horror that had for a time suspended my utterances.
12 years ago, in vision or reality, I certainly saw you. I could not forget your face. It has remained before my eyes ever since.
Her smile had softened. Whatever I had fancied.
Oh my gosh. It's like Once Upon a Dream from Sleeping Beauty, except it's not.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Her smile had softened. Whatever I fancied strange in it was gone, and it and her dimpling cheeks were now delightfully pretty and intelligent. I felt reassured, and continued more in the vein which hospitality indicated to bid her welcome, and to tell her how much pleasure her accidental arrival had given us all, and especially what a happiness it was to me. I took her hand as I spoke. I was a little shy, as lonely people are, but the situation made me eloquent and even bold. She pressed my hand. She laid hers upon it, and her eyes glowed, as looking hastily into mine, she smiled again and blushed.
Oh!
She answered my welcome very prettily. I sat down beside her, still wondering, and she said,
I must tell you my vision about you. It is so very strange that you and I should have had each of our other so vivid a dream.
Each of the other so vivid a dream.
That each should have seen you, you and you me, looking as we do now, when of course we both were mere children. I was a child about 6 years old, and I awoke from a confused and troubled dream, and found myself in a room unlike my nursery, wainscoted clumsily in some dark wood, and with cupboards and bedsteads and chairs and benches placed about it. The beds were, as I thought, all empty, and the room itself without anyone but myself in it. And I, after looking about me, for some time and admiring it, especially an iron candlestick with 2 branches, which I certainly would know again, crept under one of the beds to reach the window. But as I got from under the bed, I heard someone crying, and looking up while I was still upon my knees, I saw you, most assuredly you. As I see you now, a beautiful young lady with golden hair and large blue eyes. And lips. Your lip. You, as you are here.
That's what?
Your looks won me. I climbed on the bed and put my arms about you, and I think we both fell asleep. I was roused by a scream, and you were sitting up screaming. I was frightened and slipped down upon the ground, and it seemed to me lost consciousness for a moment. And when I came to myself, I was again in my nursery at home. Your face I had never forgotten since, and I could not be misled by mere resemblance. You are the lady in whom I saw.
There's nothing gay about...
That was like a lot. What was that?
Nothing gay about admiring a woman's lips.
That's insane.
Nah, girl, it's just how they talked back then. They're just really good roommates.
God.
It was now my turn to relate my corresponding vision, which I did, to the undisguised wonder of my new acquaintance.
I don't know which should be most afraid of the other,
she said, again smiling.
If you were less pretty, I think I should be very much afraid of you. But being as you are, and you and I both so young, I feel only that I have made your acquaintance 12 years ago, and have already a right to your intimacy. All the events does seem as if we were destined from our earliest childhood to be friends. I wonder whether you feel as strangely drawn to me as I do to you. I've never had a friend. Shall I find one now?
She sighed, with her fine dark eyes gazed passionately on me.
What is this?
It's just friendship.
Oh my god.
What are you talking about?
Oh my god.
Nothing gay about this.
Nothing.
Now, the truth is, I felt rather unaccountably towards the beautiful stranger. I did feel, as she said, drawn towards her, but there was also something of repulsion.
Oh my god, internalized homophobia.
Yeah, probably. In this ambiguous feeling, however, the sense of attraction immensely prevailed. She interested and won me. She was so beautiful and so indescribably engaging. I perceived now something of languor and exhaustion stealing over her, and hastened to bid her good night.
The doctor thinks, I added, that you ought to have a maid to sit up with you tonight. One of ours is waiting, and you will find her a very useful and quiet creature. How kind of you, but I could not sleep. I never could with an attendant in the room. I shan't require any assistance, and I shall confess my weakness. I am haunted with a terror of robbers. Our house was robbed once, and 2 servants murdered, so I always lock my door. It has become a habit, and you look so kind. I know you will forgive me. I see there is a key in the lock.
She held me close in her pretty arms for a moment and whispered in my ear,
Good night, darling. It is very hard to part with you, but good night. Tomorrow, but not early, I shall see you again.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Did I channel her really nice?
Yeah, that was really, really great.
Thank you.
She sank back on the pillow with a sigh, with her fine eyes followed me with a fond and melancholy gaze as she murmured again,
Good night, dear friend.
Young people like, and even love, on impulse. I was flattered by the evident, though as yet undeserved, fondness she showed me. I liked the confidence with which she at once received me. She was determined that we should be very near friends. And next day came, and we met again. I was delighted with my companion, and that is to say in many aspects. Her looks lost nothing in daylight. She was certainly the most beautiful creature I had ever seen, and the unpleasant remembrance of her face, presented in my early dream, had lost the effect of the first unexpected recognition. She confessed that she had experienced a similar shock on seeing me, and precisely the same faint antipathy that had mingled with my admiration of her We now laugh together over our momentary horrors.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun dun dun. Let's see. It is 7:30. On an hour and a half. One more chapter?
Okay, sure.
All right. We could split this into like 4 streams. Sounds good.
Okay.
Chapter 4. Her habits. A saunter.
Ain't that walking?
Yeah.
Her habits walking?
Yeah, she gotta go walkies.
Okay, she gotta go little walkies.
She gotta walkies. I told you that I was charmed with her in most particulars. There were some that did not please me so well. She was above the middle height of women. Excuse you. I shall begin by describing her. She was slender and wonderfully graceful, except that her movements were languid. Very languid indeed. There was nothing in her appearance to indicate an invalid. Her complexion was rich and brilliant. Her features were small and beautifully formed. Her eyes large, dark, and lustrous. Her hair was quite wonderful. I never saw hair so magnificently thick and long when it was down about her shoulders. I have often placed my hands under it and laughed with wonder at its weight. It was exquisitely fine and soft, and in color a rich, very dark brown, with something of gold. What? No, she's just talking about the homies.
Yeah.
This is how Addie talks about sleeping. I love to let it down, tumbling with its own weight. She just walks up to her and like makes her hair down.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's gay.
Of course not.
You're right. Tumbling with its own weight as, in her room, she lay back in her chair, talking in her sweet, low voice. I used to fold and braid it, and spread it out and play with it. Heavens, if I had but known it all. I said there were particulars which did not please me. I have told you that her confidence won me the first night I saw her, but I found that she exercised with respect to herself, her mother, her history, everything, in fact, connected with her life, plans, and people, an ever-wakeful reserve. I dare say I was unreasonable. Perhaps I was wrong. I dare say I ought to have respected the solemn injunction laid upon my father by the stately lady in black velvet. But curiosity is a restless and unscrupulous passion, and no one girl can endure, with patience, that hers should be baffled by another. What harm could it do anyone to tell me what I so ardently desired to know? Had she no trust in my good sense of honor? Why would she not believe me when I assured her so solemnly that I would not divulge one syllable of that what she had told me to any mortal breathing? There was a coldness, it seemed to me, beyond her years in her smiling, melancholy, persistent refusal to afford me the least ray of light. I cannot say we quarreled upon this point, for she would not quarrel upon any. It was, of course, very unfair of me to press her, very ill-bred, but I really could not help it, and I might just as well have let it alone. What she did tell me amounted, in my unconscionable estimation, to nothing. It was all summed up in 3 very vague disclosures. First, her name was Carmilla. Second, her family was very ancient and noble. Third, her home lay in the direction of the west. She would not tell me the name of her family, nor the armorial bearings, nor the name of the estate, nor even that of the country they had lived in. You are not to suppose that I worried her incessantly on these subjects. I watched opportunity, and rather insinuated than urged my inquiries. Once or twice, indeed, I did attack her with more directly. But no matter what my tactics, utter failure was invariably the result. reproaches, and caresses were all lost upon her. But I must add this, that her evasion was conducted with so pretty a melancholy and deprecation, with so many, and even passionate declarations of her likeness for me, and trust in my honor, and with so many promises that I should at last know all, that I could not find it in my heart long to be offended with her. Music just ran out.
No! I know, it's like, with how we have it set up, I only hear Grum. I don't hear music.
Yeah. You know what? It's fine. I'll just rewind it. My royalty-free music playlist on YouTube. All right.
You should have been like Honey and got that like 5-hour one.
Well, this was like the longest one they had.
Wow.
Okay. Okay. Oh, are you ready for...
Oh my god, it's time for me to read soon.
Yeah. She used to place her pretty arms around my neck, draw me to her, and laying her cheek to mine, murmur with her lips near my ear.
Dearest, your little heart is wounded. Think me not cruel, because I obey the irresistible law of my strength and weakness. But if your dear heart is wounded, my heart bleeds with yours. Or my wild heart bleeds with yours. In the rapture of my enormous humiliation, I live in your warm life, and you shall die. Die. Die sweetly into mine. I cannot help it as I draw near to you. In your turn, will draw near to others. Learn the rapture of that cruelty, which yet is love. So for a while, seek to know no more of me and mine, and trust me with all your loving spirit.
And when she had spoken such a rhapsody, she would press me more closely in her trembling embrace, and with her lips in soft kisses gently glow upon my cheek.
What's this like gay story? Who are these homos?
Her agitations and her language were unintelligible to me. From these foolish embraces, which were not of very frequent occurrences, I must allow, I used to wish to extricate myself, but my energies seemed to fail me. Her murmured words sounded like a lullaby in my ear and soothed my resistance into a trance, from which I only seemed to recover myself when she withdrew her arms. In these mysterious moods, I did not like her. I experienced a strange, tumultuous excitement that was pleasurable ever and anon, mingled with a vague sense of fear and disgust. I had no distinct thoughts about her while such scenes lasted, but I was conscious of a love growing into adoration and also of abhorrence. This, I know, is a paradox, but I can make no other attempt to explain my feelings. I now write, after an interval of more than 10 years, with a trembling hand, with a confused and horrible recollection of certain occurrences and situations in the ordeal through which I was unconsciously passing through, with a vivid and very sharp remembrance of the main current of my story. But I suspect in all lives there are certain emotional scenes, those in which our passions have been most wildly and terribly roused, that are of all others the most vaguely and dimly remembered. Oh, I'm gonna read a super gay part.
Okay, you're gonna read the quote?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
No, go for it. You said you wanted to read a specific thing. Tell me when you're happy and I can read again.
This is crazy. Sometimes, after an hour of apathy, my strange and beautiful companion would take my hand and hold it with a fond pressure, renewed again and again, blushing softly, gazing in my face with languid and burning eyes, and breathing so fast that her dress rose and fell.
Me?
With the...
Is she okay?
No.
She got alpha going into heat. What's
Oh
going
my
on?
God.
She's going feral. Like, literally.
She's going goblin mode.
She's going goblin mode.
That her dress rose and fell with the tumultuous respiration. It was like the ardor of a lover. It embarrassed me. It was hateful, yet overpowering. And with gloating eyes, she drew me to her. Her hot lips traveled along my cheek in kisses, and she would whisper, almost in sobs, "You are mine. You shall be mine. You and I are one forever." And then she has thrown herself back in her chair, with her small hands over her eyes, leaving me trembling. Okay, you can come read now.
Is girl okay?
Yeah, why wouldn't she be okay?
She's like going insane.
I mean,
She's
you
like,
know,
so, like,
that's what happens when girls catch fifis.
are we related? Oh my
See,
god.
it's fine. I used to ask.
What do you mean by all this? I remind you perhaps of someone whom you love, but you must not. I hate it. I don't know you. I don't know myself when you look so and talk so.
She used to sigh at my vehemence.
She's like overwhelmed by the gay.
Yeah. And then turn away and drop my hand.
The poor little homo.
She'll come around eventually. Respecting these very extraordinary manifestations, I strove in vain to form any satisfactory theory. I could not refer them to affection or trick. Affectation. Yeah, affectation, not affection. My bad.
You're doing so good.
Thanks, I'm trying. It's old-timey language.
Girl, don't I know it?
It was unmistakably the momentary breaking out of suppressed instinct and emotion. Was she, notwithstanding her mother's volunteered denial, subjected to brief visitations of insanity? Or was there here a disguise and a romance? I had read in old storybooks of such things. What if a boyish lover had found his way into the house and sought to prosecute his suit in masquerade, with the assistance of a clever old adventuress? But there were many things against this hypothesis, highly interesting as it was to my vanity. I could boast of no little attentions such as masculine gallantry delights to offer. Between these passionate moments, there were long intervals of commonplace, of gaiety, of brooding melancholy, during which, except that I detected her eyes so full of melancholy fire, following me, at times I might have been as nothing to her, except in these brief periods of mysterious excitement. Her ways were girlish, and there was always a languor about her, quite incompatible with a masculine system in a state of health. That was a lot, and I'm not quite sure what it means, but
Is she really gay?
yeah, she acting kinda
Sussy.
sussy.
Baka.
She's kinda acting sussy-wussy.
My god.
In some respects, her habits were odd, perhaps not so singular in the opinion of a town lady like you as they appear to us rustic people. She used to come down very late, generally not till 1 o'clock. She would then take a cup of chocolate, but eat nothing. We then went out for a walk, which was a mere saunter, and she seemed almost immediately exhausted and either returned to the schloss or sat on one of the benches that were placed here and there among the trees. There was a bodily languor in which her mind did not sympathize. She was always an animated talker and very intelligent. She sometimes alluded for a moment to her own home, or mentioned an adventure or situation or early recollection, which indicated a people of strange manners, and described customs of which we knew nothing. I gathered from these chance hints that her native country was much more remote than I had first fancied. As we sat thus one afternoon under the trees, a funeral passed by. It was that of a pretty young girl whom I had often seen, the daughter of one of the rangers of the forest. The poor man was walking behind the coffin of his darling. She was his only child, and he looked quite heartbroken. Peasants walked 2 by 2, came behind, and they were singing a funeral hymn. I rose to mark my respect as they passed and joined in the hymn they were singing very sweetly. My companion shook me a little roughly, and I turned surprised. She said brusquely,
"Don't you perceive how discordant that is? I think it's very sweet, on the contrary."
I answered, vexed at the interruption and very uncomfortable, lest the people who composed the little procession should observe and resent what was passing. I resumed, therefore, instantly, and was again interrupted.
"You pierce my ears,"
said Carmilla almost angrily, and stopping her ears with her tiny fingers.
"Besides, how can you tell that your religion and mine are the same? Your forms wound me, and I hate funerals. What a fuss. Why, you must die. Everyone must die. All are happier when they do. Come home. My father has gone on with the clergyman to the churchyard. I thought you knew she was to be buried today." She? I don't have any I don't trouble my head about peasants. I don't trouble my head about peasants. I don't know who she is,"
answered Carmilla with a flash from her fine eyes.
"She is the poor girl who fancied she saw a ghost a fortnight ago, and has been dying ever since, till yesterday when she expired. Tell me nothing about ghosts. I shan't sleep tonight if you do. I hope there is no plague or fever coming. All this looks very like it,"
I continued.
"The swineherd's young wife died only a week ago, and she thought something seized her by the throat as she lay in her bed. It nearly strangled her. Papa said such horrible fancies do accompany some forms of fever. She was quite well the day before. She sank afterwards and died before a week. Well, her funeral is over, I hope, and her hymn sung, and our ears shan't be tortured with that discord and jargon. It made me nervous. Sit down here beside me. Sit close, hold my hand, and press it hard. Hard. Harder.
Harder.
Harder." Girl, am I?
Yeah, fine. We had moved a little back, and we had come to another seat. She sat down. Her face underwent a change that alarmed and even terrified me for a moment. It darkened, and then became horribly livid. Her teeth and her hands were clenched, and she frowned and compressed her lips, while she stared at the ground at her feet, and trembled all over with a continued shudder of irrepressible as ague. All her energy seemed strained to suppress a fit, with which she was then breathlessly tugging, and at length a low convulsive cry of suffering broke from her, and gradually the hysteria subsided.
"There, that comes of strangling people with hymns," she said at last. Hold me still. It is passing by."
And so gradually it did.
A little freak.
I know, right? And so gradually it did, and perhaps to dissipate the somber impressions which the spectacle had left upon me, she became unusually animated and chatty, and so we got home. This was the first time I had seen her exhibit any defiable symptoms of that delicacy of health which her mother had spoken of. It was the first time also I had seen her exhibit anything like temper. Angie. Both passed away like a summer cloud, and never but once afterwards did I witness on her part a momentary sign of anger. I will tell you how it happened. She and I were looking out of one of the long drawing room windows, when there entered the courtyard over the drawbridge a figure of a wanderer whom I knew very well. He used to visit the Schloss generally twice a year. It was the figure of a hunchback, with the sharp, lean features that generally accompanied deformity. He wore a pointed black beard, and he was smiling from ear to ear, showing his white fangs.
Oh my God.
He was dressed in buff, black, and scarlet, and crossed with more straps and belts than I could count, from which hung all manner of things. Behind, he carried a magic lantern and and two boxes, which I well knew, in one of which was a salamander, and in the other was a mandrake. These monsters used to make my father laugh. They were compounded of parts of monkeys, parrots, squirrels, fish, and hedgehogs,
Oh my god.
dried and stitched together
Oh my god.
with a great neatness and startling effect. Interesting. More
Girl.
racist overtones, or ableist ones, I should say.
This is a lot.
Probably both. He had a fiddle, a box of conjuring apparatus, a pair of foils and masks attached to his belt, several other mysterious cases dangling about him, and a black spare dog that followed at his heels but stopped short suspiciously at the drawbridge, and in a little while began to howl dismally. Let's see, magic lantern. A simple optical device using slides to display magnified image on a widescreen. Oh. Okay, so it's like an old-fashioned projector.
Interesting. Like Tarzan?
Yeah,
Okay.
but older. Like,
Old Tarzan.
well, I mean, like, the technology they use is older.
Okay.
Older Tarzan? Girl.
Get this.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the meantime, the mountebank, I actually know what that is.
Mouthful.
Mountebank, standing in the midst of the courtyard, raised his grotesque hat and made us a very ceremonious bow.
What's the Mont Blanc song? Because I think it's a Vocaloid song.
It's a public salesman of fake medicines, charms, and such things. It's basically a con man.
Ooh.
In the first Dragon's Dogma,
Dragon's Doggy.
you can go to the Black Cat, which is a forgery shop, and the guy running it is called Mountebank.
And you're like, what?
Yeah, so he's literally a con man. The Mountebank, with his standing in the midst of the courtyard, raised his grotesque hat and made us a very ceremonious bow, paying his compliments very volubly in execrable French and in German, not much better. Ja.
Oh my god.
Then, disengaging his fiddle, he began to scrape a lively air, to which he sang with merry discord.
Oh my god, I can sing for you.
Please don't. Dancing with ludicrous airs and activity that made me laugh in spite of the dog's howling. Then he advanced to the window with many smiles and salutations and his hat in his left hand. He fiddled under his arm, and with a fluency that never took breath, he gabbled a long advertisement of all. Ooh, we get some artwork. Engraving of Carmilla, drawn by M. Fitzgerald. Look at that.
Wow.
There's the girly pies.
Nice. Oh my god, word.
His accomplishments and resources of various arts, which he placed at our service, and the curiosities and entertainments which it was in his power at our bidding to display.
Will your ladyships be pleased to buy an amulet against the pyre? Which is going like the wolf, I hear, through these woods.
Alternative spelling of vampire probably meant here to give usage of a local or eastern flavor.
Pyre.
The pyre.
Oh my god.
He said, dropping his hat on the pavement.
They are dying of it, right and left. And here is a charm that never fails, only pinned to the pillow, and it may laugh in its face. You may laugh in its face.
These charms consisted of oblong slips of vellum with Kabbalistic ciphers and diagrams upon them. Carmilla instantly purchased one, and so did I. He was looking up, and we were smiling down upon him, amused, at least, I can see for myself, his piercing black eye, as he looked up at our faces, seeming to detect something that fixed for a moment his curiosity. In an instant, he unrolled his leather case, full of manner of odd little steel instruments.
See here, my lady,
he said, displaying it and addressing me.
I perfect, among other things less useful, the art of dentistry. Take the dog?
He interpolated.
Silence, beast. He howls so that your ladyships can scarcely hear a word. Your noble friend, the young lady at your right, has the sharpest tooth. Long, thin, and pointed like an owl. I assume like the tool.
Yeah.
Not like a bird. Like a needle. Haha. With my sharpened long sight, as I look up, I have seen it distinctly. Now if it happens to hurt the young lady, and I will think it must, here I am. Here are my file, my punch, and my nippers. I will make it round and blunt, if her ladyship pleases, no longer the tooth of a fish, but of a beautiful young lady that she is. Hey, is the young lady displeased? Have I been too bold? Have I offended her?
The young lady indeed looked very angry as she drew back from the window.
Oh my god. How dares that Blanc insult us so? Where is your father? I shall demand redress from him. Redress?
Yeah.
From him. My father would have had the wretch tied up to the pump and flogged with a cart whip. Or to the bone with the cattle brand.
Castle brand.
Castle brand.
Hi, girl. You want me to fix that snaggletooth?
Die.
She retired from the window a step or two and sat down, and had hardly lost sight of the offender when her wrath subsided as suddenly as it had risen, and she gradually recovered her usual tone and seemed to forget the little hunchback and his follies. My father was out of spirits that evening. On coming in, he told us that there had been another case very similar to the two fatal ones which had occurred lately. The sister of a young peasant on his estate, only a mile away, was very ill, had been, as she described it, attacked very nearly in the same way, and was now slowly but steadily sinking.
All this,
said my father,
is strictly referable to natural causes. These poor people infect one another with their superstitions, and so repeat the images of terror that have infested their neighbors. But that very circumstance frightens one horribly,
said Carmilla.
How so?
Inquired my father.
I am so afraid of fancying I see such things. I think it would be as bad as reality. We are in God's hands. Nothing can happen without his permission, and all will end well for those who love him. He is our faithful creator. He has made us all, and he will take care of us. Creator? Nature?
Said the young lady in answer to my gentle father.
And this disease that invades the country is natural. Nature. All things proceed from nature, don't they? All things in heaven, in the earth, and under the earth act and live as nature ordains. I think so. The doctor said he would come here today, said my father after a silence. I want to know what he thinks about it, and what he thinks we had better do. Doctors never did me any good, said Carmilla. Then have you been ill? I asked. More ill than you ever were, she answered. Long ago? Yes, a long time. I suffer from this very illness, but I forgot all but my pain and weakness, and they were not so bad as are suffered in other diseases. You were very young then? I dare say, let us talk no more of it. You would not wound a friend? She looked languidly in my eyes and passed her arm round my waist lovingly and led me out of the room. My father was busy over some papers near the window. Gay girl. Yeah, I know. Why does your papa like to frighten us? Said the pretty girl with a sigh and a little shudder. He doesn't, dear Camilla. Oh, maybe it was Camilla the whole Oh my god. He doesn't, dear Camilla. It is, I know, I was like, did I misread that? It is the very furthest thing from his mind. Are you afraid, dearest? I should be very much if I fancy there was any real danger of my being attacked as those poor people were. You are afraid to die? Yes, everyone is. But to die as lovers may. To die together. So that we may live together. Girls are caterpillars while they are living this world. And to be finally butterflies when summer comes. But in the meantime, there are grubs and larvae you don't see. Each of their peculiar propensities, necessities, and structure. So says Monsieur Buffon. Did she just say buffoon? Did I say buffoon? Buffon? Buffon? in his book in the next room.
Later in the day, the doctor came and was closeted with Papa for some time. He was a skillful man, 60 and upwards, and he wore powder and shaved his pale face as smooth as a pumpkin. He and Papa emerged from the room together, and I heard Papa laugh and say as they came out,
Well, I do wonder at a wise man like you. What do you say to hippogriffs and dragons?
The doctor was smiling and made answer, shaking his head.
Nevertheless, life and death are mysterious states, and we know little of the resources of either.
And so they walked on, and I heard no more. I did not then know what the doctor had been broaching, but I think I guess it now.
Ooh.
And that's the end of chapter 4.
That took about 2 hours.
Oh my goodness. What did you think?
That was surprisingly gayer than I thought it was gonna be. Well, that's true. I've not read this. I've seen the web series 5,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the modern retelling. I don't know this thing at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really gay. No wonder why they did a gay web series about it.
Yeah.
Sponsored by...
You know, there are still people who deny that it's, like, meant to be read that way.
I mean, like, you could say Laura's not into it, but if you say Carmilla is not into her, you're like, you can't read.
Yeah.
Like, you literally cannot read. I could see people arguing it's one-sided or whatever.
Yeah.
Because she's like, I hate it.
Yeah.
I internalized homophobia. That's
Like, this is weird.
This is weird. But this girl kissing me.
I mean, you know, there's a lot of things that go into that. The fact that, like, queerness is considered such a taboo subject for so long by so many different groups of people, even today.
Yeah.
But, you know, what you could and what you could not get away with, and having to insinuate or have things be one-sided or to portray certain people a certain way.
That'd be very interesting to look into the author.
Yeah, I don't know too much about Sheridan Le Fanu. I know a little bit about Bram Stoker, but anyway. Well, that was the first 4 chapters of Carmilla. And we might have been mispronouncing her name the entire time. She might have been going by Camilla. I'm too tired to go back and re-listen.
Oh my god.
It might have just been a typo too. Who knows? Whatever. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed. I'll probably be back next week. Maybe Num Nums will join me.
Yay! Oh, we'll see if you want me to. You'll listen to the stream and decide. You're like, ugh.
Ugh. No, I think we did a good job. Rip to the headphones users, though. There were a few moments where you, like...
No.
you were...
No, I was quiet and professional the entire time.
That's true. I don't know what I'm talking about. Must have been me.
Yeah.
Must have been the wind.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes. So, all right. I can also put this on. I also plan on putting this on YouTube.
Oh my god.
We can have a nice audio book.
And it's not nice with me reading. It's nice when you are.
Hey, no negative thoughts, Missy.
I think the headphone users can argue with you.
Why? You were quiet and professional the whole
Oh my
time.
god, you're so right. And I pronounced everything right.
That's right. Me too.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.